The Gardens of Deathworlders. Part 1. Clearing the weeds of the past in C. Mission Orders. Priority. Specialist Agent Ghost 4. Activated. Star. A synthetic masculine voice awakens the occupant of the private single-person bunk. Yeshi mission profile. Gain access to the target vessel. Conduct intelligence collection operations. Capture the vessel and all technologies aboard, or scuttle if necessary. Above all else, the target vessel and any technology it possesses cannot be allowed to escape your custody. Any and all means necessary are authorized for this assignment. Key. Mission will activate immediately once the asset is in place. Further brief will be made available on mission. A blur of motion streaked down the slightly upwardly sloped corridor of the space station. At this time of the shift cycle, there were few people in this area to collide with, which left the way clear. The thunderous pounding of boots on the metal flooring warned anyone to think twice before interrupting this person. This was the kind of priority mission that left no time for subtlety or hindrance by some roaming crew member. The still wet, crimson-red hair flowed from the woman's head as she ran at full speed towards her objective. The skin-tight, void-safe underclothes she wore under her bulky EVA suit did restrict her movement, just slightly. The polymer fabric most of her clothing was made from was being stretched to their limit. She held a deep hope that success in this mission may finally lead to a promotion and a deployment anywhere but this station at the very edge of the asteroid belt. A quick right and an even quicker left brought her to a ladder leading down towards an already open airlock. With all the quickness of the sprint here, the blur of black reinforced fabrics and curly red hair slipped down the ladder and through the airlock. With each rung she passed, she had to strain harder and harder to slow her descent. As she nearly fell into the module, she grabbed the hatch to the airlock and pulled it shut behind her. With the airlock now sealing itself, the lightly damp mess of hair was quickly wrapped into a bun, and a helmet was locked into place, without concern for the few stray hairs that may get unfortunately short. As the HUD startup sequence played on the inside of the helmet's visor, the now fully sealed and flight-ready woman plopped into her seat and strapped herself in to start the initialization sequence. The belt had been clicked into the place. The lighting inside the module suddenly changed and gave the detach warning. Just as abruptly as the day had started, the transit module detached itself, was flung from the spinning station and initiated its high-output Sean engine. After the seat of the transit module shifted into the flight position, the lone passenger shimmied around to try to get comfortable in her seat-turned couch, dismissing the launch data from her HUD. It was time to start digging into this mission brief. The flight system's ETA showed a countdown of just over 18 hours, which meant there would be plenty of time to study the brief, formulate a plan, and possibly even take a short nap. The short pages of text, few scanner readouts, and even lower resolution pictures being projected. HUD implied there was something wrong here. A confused and mildly concerned expression became visible as a faint reflection on the inside of the visor. Major Sarah McFree tried to wrap her muddled mind around the brief in front of her. She had been woken up in the middle of a particularly good dream by this top priority, mission notification, and having been awake for less than 10 minutes after only a few short hours of sleep, she knew she probably wasn't in the best state of mind for reading this level of classified information. However, it only took 20 minutes to read through the entire mission brief, even in her half-asleep state. And that was concerning. She couldn't believe they just sent her out here with only this. No. Did her superiors really send her on a mission to intercept board and secure a station orbiting Jupiter by herself? And with only little to work from? Without any specific information on who would be on that station, what capabilities they had, or even what exactly they were doing all the way out here. All she knew for sure was that this was a relatively small spin station with unknown modification in an elliptical orbit around Jupiter. Though the orbit brought it through high energy and radiation zones, the station itself also seemed to be emitting random high energy bursts. Whoever it was and whatever they were doing, Sarah just said a silent prayer that they would adhere to the gentleman's agreement and not just disable her little transit module to leave her stranded out there. This kind of mission was how good agents got lost to the void. If it came down to it, she would be okay for a week or so by rationing, but it would not be a fun experience. Rather than focus on any of that, she stared at the countdown, timer ticking away in the top corner on her visor. There was still over 17.5 hours left before intercept in about 5 hours until the retroburn to put her in an orbit alongside her target. Even with the mild forces of acceleration pulling at her body, catching up on some sleep would be impossible. With a small bit of effort to push the recline button on her chair's controls, the chair slowly flattened out further to provide a more comfortable resting position. She contemplated taking off her helmet, getting something to eat from the rations, and drying out her still slightly damp hair. However, the comfort of the chair and the sleepiness in her eyes kept her down as she slowly faded back to sleep. Estimated in 17 hours. A synthetic feminine voice almost seemed to whisper in the comfortably sized private room. Encrypted QTM sent to Marsgov, IA, for tactical package update. Waiting response, and will advise when updated. After several moments passed, a low, quiet, near animalistic groan was muffled by a pile of slightly shifting weighted blanket. In another corner of this relatively small room, a dark, brindled head with one blue and one yellow eye arose from under another pile of cloth. Sheepishly, it looked around for a moment, only quickly tucked its head back below the covers. The fluff of gray feathers perched in yet another corner of the room didn't seem to even register the sound of the intercom as its body slowly and rhythmically expanded and contracted with its deep breaths. 6 more hours of near silence filled the room. All that could be heard was the distant hum of machinery, a slight buzz of what sounded like static, and the almost inaudible trickle of water. Several 100,000 miles away, a deep red storm of unimaginable proportions raged across the pseudo-surface of a planet so large that even at this distance, one would like they could reach out and touch. The crackling lightning on its surface and various shades of reds and oranges dances among each other in a silent ballet. A system alert. Priority. Incoming encrypted QTN transmission from Marsgov IIT. The synthetic feminine voice once again broke the silence. IE mission status. Cleared for immediate launch on predetermined vector Alpha 45.239C. Kind ONE vessel course has not been altered. Estimated time to arrival 11 hours. HFY Commandante Prashit requesting immediate contact response and is waiting on this encrypted line for confirmation. Repeat, Subcommandant Prashit requesting immediate contact response and is waiting on this encrypted line for confirmation. Repeat, Subcom. I get it. Roared an angry voice as the mountain of weighted blankets shifted and began to topple. Out erupted a lightly tanned face, heavily obscured by what could only be described as a disaster of hair, and an equally chaotic beard. Would you like me to connect you to the Subcommandant now? The contact response request is of the top priority. And he asked the shipboard though its name, roughly translated into English, meant sloppy drunk raccoon, and despite the captain's best effort to reprogram it, this ship's AI could only be a resolute professional in all of its tasks. Can I at least take a shower and drink some coffee first? The now quite disheveled-looking man reached over and pushed the button on a console just outside his sleeping nook while letting out an exasperated whine. Imarsgov. Intelligence Agency priority. Contacted response. Override. Accepted, cheeky fucking. The man whispered under his breath as he slowly plied himself from the mass of weighted blankets and warm bed. In Bodebiespin. This is Eagle's Landing. How? Copy over. One pleasant synthetic replaced another far harsher one being played through the intercom. The quantum tunneling messenger relayed its data packets nearly instantly across hundreds of millions of miles of space. These transmissions utilized a network system of quantum entangled particles which, though millions of times faster than the speed of light, had incredibly limited bandwidths. They could really only transmit small packets of information, while using tremendous amounts of power. It was much more of a fusion-powered instant telegraph system than anything resembling other modern communication systems. However, nothing could beat its speed or resistance to interception and encryption cracking. Howdy. It looks a bit cloudy with a chance of rain today, though pleasant. How are you on this fine day? While playing up his accent for comedic effect, the coded phrase indicated that nothing was amiss and the mission was continuing as expected. In fact, the drive had almost finished charging and the last of the course calculations would be done within a few hours. When the last time you checked your comms or sensor systems, Mick? You are not clean and clear. You have a bogey incoming. We need you back in Mars orbit and within our protective grid before the feds can get anything from you. I don't care if you want to do more research. Your mission is over. If you get harassed, fuck the gentleman's agreement and get home ASAP by any means necessary. GI before there was even a chance to respond, the ship AI chimed in. Contact response ended. Well, as Mick jumped up from his sleeping nook and clapped his hand. The loud sound caused the pair of creatures in the left and right corners of the room to shoot their heads up and give the man stares of disapproval. Oh, don't give me that. The man quickly retorted. I know you were both awake this whole time, and you can't pretend you weren't. However, the stares continued. Fine. You can go back to sleep, but I'm gonna run lockdown procedures. I'll come get you when I have your breakfast ready. At that, both of the animals put their heads back down to continue their rests. Silently, as to not disturb his companions further and arouse more of their ire. Mick slowly proceeded with getting up, extracting his now ready coffee from the panel next to him. He began walking to the bathroom unit to get ready for this hopefully historic day. He couldn't help but wonder who his surprise guest would be, and how best to deal with them. There were really only so many agents that the tyrants had out far enough for this fast of a response time. And even if he didn't necessarily like the idea, the gentleman's agreement being thrown out meant he had even more ways he could deal with them if things got out of hand. Chen. Oh. Jen show. At least so. Entering final approach. Vector. Porting these in on that store. Relative distance to target, 20 kilometers. Relative velocity, 25 meters per second. Estimated time to target, 13 minutes, 20 seconds. A voice from Sarah's transitor called out. Computer, initiate protocol, puppy dog eyes. Having spent the past few hours working through various plans, Sarah had finally settled on one of her tried and true infiltration methods. Set main thruster 2. Before she could finish her commands, the ship AI interrupted her. Alert. Incoming high energy. Projectiles detected. Estimated impact in 4, 3, 2. For the first time in a long time, true fear shot through the Major's veins as her transitor module rocked violently. The once pure white and vibrant lighting, which had graced the small cabin, was suddenly replaced with a dull crimson hue. Warning. Catastrophic damage detected in primary engine array. Main thrusters disabler. Before the automated warning message had a chance to complete its prophecy of disaster, the transitor rocked again, though not quite as violently as the first impact. Warning. Damage detected to communication systems. Long-range comms and QTM array have been disabled. Emergency distress beacon failure. Calculating recommendations. The computerized warning was incredibly dire. Oh no. The words softly escaped from her lips. This was the one thing anyone who had ever been in space feared above all else. Losing both your engine and comms millions of miles away from the nearest person who was willing and capable of helping. This was what the gentleman's agreement between the UN and Marsgov was made to avoid. What kind of horrible person would do this another? If push really came to shove in space, there was a standing order that agents, handlers, and assets would be treated humanely. Even the most radical actors in both the UN and Marsgov played by these rules. Despite everything, leaving someone to die in the blackness of space by either starvation, dehydration, or asphyxiation was just wrong. Incoming short range. Earcom signal detected. Eyeball. The quick chime for the ship AI broke Sarah out of her daze. Whoever it was, hopefully they would be willing to let her surrender. All she could do was say a silent prayer that this station's crew wouldn't do anything to her when she inevitably was at their mercy. Put it through on the main screen and send back audio and visual. I want these fucks to look me in the eye if they decide to leave me to drift. Before she even had a chance to realize the connection had been